I'm here with CEO Alan Garrettson to chat about the hidden costs of loans. Almost everyone knows that legal documents can be tricky with complicated jargon and technical language. All of these factors present the perfect hiding place for sneaky costs.
Hey, how are you, Sarah?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thanks. And you're right. We all know how complicated any kind of finance doc can be. And as an example, this little credit card thing that I got in the mail today, they send you this, and then they send you all this little booklet full of stuff that we all get with our credit cards. And this one happens to be 24% financing. That's a good deal. But I'm not going to sit around and read this, and I don't think anybody else does either. But my industry and the equipment finance industry for businesses is just as guilty, because the documents I send out are long, they're tedious, they have a lot of small print. Just because we're not going to take the time to read them doesn't mean we shouldn't know what's in them and be aware of all the costs associated.
So where is the opportunity in financing agreements to include unexpected costs to a consumer?
There are opportunities at the very beginning of the finance agreement, being it a lease or an equipment finance agreement. In the middle, during the term, there's lots of opportunity for cost, and at the end, there's even more opportunities for cost for customers. So all throughout the agreement, you need to be aware that there are costs that could be lurking to surprise you.
So is there any way that people can avoid these costs that you just talked about?
Well, yeah, let's talk about the cost on the front end of an agreement first. When you're signing an agreement, let's say you sign it on January 1st. Let's make it simple. Most of us think that, okay, I send in my first payment, I have, let's say, 35 more payments, and then I'm done. But sometimes leases and finance agreements have something called early commencements or commencement dates. And what that'll say is, just because you're saying we're paying this on January 1st, your agreement doesn't start till March 1st. So you've made a payment in January, you've made a payment in February, and finally in March, they say your agreement commences and those first two payments don't count. You still have 36 payments. So the question is, well, how can you do that? Well, sometimes finance companies say we can do that because it says so in the small print. They do it just because they can. That's a big hidden cost you need to be aware of. So always ask about commencement dates. Does my agreement commence the date that I'm signing it and the date you sign and you pay the vendor? It always should. And those little payments that add up to that lead up to the commencement date, those are called interim rents. That's another question that you can ask of. Are there any interim rents in my agreement that I need to be aware of?
How about during the term of the agreement? What costs are associated with there? Where can people look?
Yeah, there are big ones in the middle. The most frequent and most complained about are late fees. If and when we as consumers face the same thing. If your payment is due on the 15th and you make it on the 20th, depending on the size, in our industry, these are hundreds of thousands of dollars in terms of size of the agreement. You can accrue hundreds of dollars in late fees. And so be very aware that you're making payments on time. And I always encourage my customers, do an automatic draw. Don't wait for the bill. Don't wait for your bookkeeper to cut a check. Maybe he or she had a bad day and it didn't happen. Always get an automatic draw on your monthly payments to avoid late fees. And late fees are ubiquitous. They're in my agreement. There's nothing we can do about it because banks charge late fees. Just be very conscious of your due date. And also make sure your insurance is up to date. If you don't have insurance, finance companies will go out and get insurance for you. So make sure you provide proof of insurance to your finance company, in this case FX Financial. That'll cover your insurance costs, so we don't have to go out and get insurance for you, because all the equipment we finance has to be covered by insurance. So during the term, you can get hit with late fees, And if your insurance expires, we have to go out and find insurance for you, and that's a cost you may not have expected either.
Wow, I didn't realize that there were so many costs in the beginning and the end, or in the middle. What about the end? Are there any costs that people looking to get loans can expect there?
Yeah, and keep in mind these are business loans. We don't do consumer stuff. So at the end of the term, there's always what's called a purchase option or a purchase agreement or a purchase upon termination. Make sure when you enter into an agreement, you know exactly how much you're going to pay at the end. For instance, so I'm sure you or someone you know has done a car lease before, right? You lease a car for 24 months, and at the end of the term, you can either send it back, the car back, or you can purchase it. Well, in the equipment industry, it's kind of the same. Most of the stuff we do is at the end of the term, you own the equipment. Like it's 5 years, you make your last payment, the customer owns the gear. That's how I prefer to do business. But sometimes customers are caught unaware by finance companies that'll say, oh, no, you don't own it yet. You have to pay us the fair market value of the equipment because this is a lease. And the reason that happens is because they didn't read the fine print at the very beginning. So always make sure when you're entering into a finance agreement that you ask whoever you're dealing with, you know, what happens at the end of the term? Do I own it outright? And then ask them, where in the agreement does it say that? I want to see that so I can read it so I know where it is. So at the beginning, you can get hit with interim rents that lead up to a commencement date. In the middle, there are late fees and insurance costs if you're not insured. And at the very end, make sure that you know what the purchase option is. And for the most part, make sure you own the equipment after you make your last monthly payment, so you're not caught by surprise by some purchase option that you didn't know.
Definitely. And is there any way that people can avoid these costs?
Yeah, the first step is to make sure that they possibly exist. I don't, early commencements or commencement dates and interim rents, I wouldn't call them unethical. Unethical is a pretty loaded word, but at FX Financial, we gauge whether or not we're going to do something by, do we want to take that phone call from that customer? If I don't want to take that phone call from the customer, then we're probably not going to do it. But the customer needs to be aware when they're dealing with everybody, dealing with finance companies, that just be aware of the cost, the interim rents, commencement dates, what are the late fees, can I do an automatic payment, and always, always, always make sure that you know what happens when you make your last payment. Do I own the equipment outright? Is there a balloon payment? Make sure you know exactly where that is in your agreement before you initiate it.
Awesome. Well, wow, and I can really see how costs could add up really fast. And knowing this, anyone for a loan can guard against these extra costs and save themselves money for sure.
Yeah, it will save them money, save them frustration, and it just makes for a longer lasting relationship if expectations are set up front.
Awesome. Well, if you're a vendor looking to acquire entertainment technology for your next job, please reach out to Alan by emailing him at fx-financial.com. Alan, do you have anything to add?
No, not at all. Feel free to give me a call if you have any more questions at 512-481-0227.
Well, thanks so much, Alan. Tune in next time for FX Financial on Air.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Later. Bye.